Welcome to episode 204 of Timm Talk, the podcast about the DC animated universe co-created by Bruce Timm. I'm Chris Lord.
And I'm Cameron Dexter.
And
I'm here too.
And we have a very special guest this week, a person who's been name dropped on this show probably more times than anyone else and has not yet appeared. They're also one of the producers over at Watchtower Database and making a very long overdue appearance. Welcome, Mattie Washburn.
I'm wondering if there's like anybody in your audience who has like heard my name on the podcast but hasn't watched Watchtower Database, and they're like, "Oh my god, it's finally happening! They're here!"
I'm sure. I'm
exist?
positive.
They're a real person.
Hello, everybody.
I mean,
I'm so excited to be on. We were talking about this like before we started recording and everything, but like I've been listening to y'all for years now, and like it's weird. We've become friends, and now I'm here. Like it was just a podcast I threw on to like pass the time, and now things have just shifted over.
I know
years.
it's amazing, and that's why I said a very long overdue appearance, because literally we I would say almost once an episode, as you've heard listening to it, like we mention you because we don't know what the hell we're talking about ever. We're like, Mattie knows. They'll let us know.
I started to feel so bad over the pandemic because since I wasn't driving, like I wasn't staying like as up to date with the podcast, and then I would just like listen to 6 or 7 episodes back to back and be like, "Oh, there were a lot of things I was supposed to tell them, aren't."
That's a lot of us. That's
all it
I
is.
applaud you for staying with us for 8 hours.
It is not your responsibility to point out what we don't know, because it's a lot. So that's why we're very, very happy on here. But we'll be talking about Patriot Act and the Great Brain Robbery this week. So I'm very, very excited to talk about the Great Brain Robbery because that's the one you specifically requested. But starting out, we'll do Patriot Act, and I'll do my usual half-assed summary here. So in this one, General Wade Eiling, furious the Cadman yielded to the Justice League, injects himself with a Nazi super soldier serum, turning him into basically the Hulk, and he goes on a rampage to prove that metahumans are dangerous and faces off against a group of non-power leaguers, only to realize that he's the true threat. So I found this episode fine. What did you two think about it?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I put it on, and I ended up enjoying it more than the episode that I asked to come on for.
Okay, so what about this did you find super compelling? 'Cause I thought it was just like forgettable for the most part.
Well, God, there's so much working for it. I don't know where to start. I mean, obviously, from the get-go, there's the whole riff on Marvel that they're doing, right? The Project Captain Nazi is obviously an analog for Captain America. The Wade Eiling using the super soldier, super Nazi serum or whatever is obviously a reference to the Hulk or Abomination or Red Hulk, whichever one you want to say. The Hulk,
whichever version of the Hulk you want.
But I think deeper than that is like the political messaging of the episode. Obviously, it's titled Patriot Act after the Patriot Act, right? It's a post 9/11 world. I know it aired in 2006, but animation usually takes like a year or two to kind of get through the door. So it was a little fresher on the mind when they were making it, and a lot of the narrative of the story is about American imperialism and finding new ways to govern and law enforcement and stuff like that, rather than doing what we've always done and still to this day do. Like General Eiling is literally a fascist who's explicitly afraid of communism in this episode.
Yeah,
and like. They go out of their way to give him a line about, "We'd be living under a red flag, Waller."
Oh my God, I know. What's amazing is how relevant that sort of ideology was then and still is now to some degree. And you're like, oh, it's been like 20 years. You think we would have moved on? But no.
No, we never do.
Maybe gotten worse.
Yeah, exactly. We might have regressed, in fact.
Propaganda machine go brrr.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, even Waller has that great line when they're at dinner of our enemy's never quite as evil as we imagine, and sometimes we aren't as good. Mm-hmm. Like that's it. That's the thesis. That's the whole thesis for basically the entire universe.
And it is interesting they kind of position Waller as this sort of midpoint considering that she was one of the primary antagonists in the last season, and she sort of had this complete turnaround where now she's like, the league's not so bad. They're all right. We're friendly-ish. I don't know. I mean, I do love her, and it was fun to see her back and have CCH Pounder back, obviously. And of course, J.K. Simmons is fantastic, always, all the time.
I love that they did not manipulate his voice at all after he went Hulk.
I found that very weird. Like,
no, it is weird, but that's why I loved it, because you don't expect them to do it that way, and then they do.
Well, and especially because J.K. Simmons is a brilliant actor, but also a brilliant voice actor. Like, he could have very easily put on a slight infection, and you're like, I wonder why. There's a weird creative choice on either his part or the part of like the voice director on this, and not do that. Because I found it very distracting when he's got this like gray face and these weird like black and yellow eyes and these massive teeth, and he's just talking like normal J.K. Simmons.
It's definitely distracting, but I think if we want to give a reason to them doing it, and I can't say this as like a fact or anything, but to me, I feel like it's a way to keep the humanization of the character. That way, you can like kind of like relate and see that it's still a human being that is making these terrible decisions, that is, trying to rule by force and everything. And it kind of gives you more of a window of insight and reflection to be like, wait, this could be any of us kind of situation.
Way to show up and just like be way smarter than Cameron and I when it comes to this sort of analysis. We're just like, it's just weird to hear his voice, and you have actually something very thoughtful and meaningful to contribute, and like, well, way to just show us what we've been missing for the last 5 years.
Got punched.
Yeah.
I like the punching too.
I like that he smashed things. But you mentioned like the Spy Smasher stuff at the very beginning, because this episode opens in kind of a weird way. It opens with this black and white sequence of like a Nazi scientist in some German castle, very stereotypical, about ready to conduct an experiment. To your point, it's similar to what happens with Steve Rogers and the Captain America serum, and gets stopped by the Spy Smasher, who I'm assuming is an actual character from DC Comics at some point.
He is. So what I learned in my minimal research on this to try and impress Mattie is there were a group of 7 heroes that existed either right before or right after the JSU.
The 7 Soldiers of Victory?
Yes.
Okay,
and this is the team. So it's Spy Master. Stars and Stripes replaced Star Spangled Lad and someone else. And then it's Green Arrow, Wally, Vigilante, and Shining Knight.
Oh, okay.
Crimson Avenger as well. Yeah.
Oh, and Speedy, which explains why they just randomly drop in Speedy for, I think, the one and only time in this entire universe.
Yes.
My recollection.
Yes.
Is it the same model from Teen Titans?
It's not the same exact model, but it is designed specifically to like ape that model and bring it into the Timm style.
Because the hair was very like flat to the head, which was very Teen Titans.
James Tucker said that they that's an intentional Teen Titans reference.
Okay, and that makes sense.
Which means now that I'm here, I have to pitch Titans talk. Do it. Listen,
monster.
I'm just saying, you just did Flash and Substance. Kid Flash's costume is in the museum. We're doing Patriot Act now. Speedy is here. Bruce Timm is listed as an executive producer on Teen Titans.
Well, Chris,
we've talked about it. Well, I probably ended up cutting all this out, so I'm not held accountable for my decisions. We have talked about it, but we shall see.
Mattie, if we keep talking about it the whole episode, he can't cut it out.
I've gotten very busy these days. Editing a podcast is a lot of work.
I feel the pain. It's so hard now that I'm back at work to find time to do Watchtower Database stuff, and I feel like I'm letting everybody down.
Yeah, exactly. I feel guilty.
You have real fans. We have you and our parents.
Oh, that's sweet that you think my parents listen. They don't.
My mom says she does, and that's enough for me.
Hi,
I don't
Cameron's
ask any questions.
Thanks, Cindy. We always appreciate you maybe listening. But so that opening sequence, though, like, it's fun, but even as I was watching it, it's done in this weird style that feels like it's, kind of referencing or almost aping serialized, like, films of that time. And so as I'm watching, I'm like, wait, is this a flashback? But it almost felt like a movie within a movie to some degree. Like it felt like someone was watching this.
It was very
fictional.
Hollywood. Yeah.
Yeah, it felt very Hollywood and stagey. And then, it's ultimately revealed that it's been Eiling reading a report. So I guess this is what he imagines all this stuff looks like, which is an interesting thing in of itself. Like that's how he imagines when he reads like military reports, is that they're old-fashioned movie serials.
Yeah, well, how do you read it? I'm sure there's James Bond in there.
That's true.
Everyone's holding a martini glass.
I just love that. I believe this is actually the first episode of Justice League Unlimited that like I got my fiance to sit through with me. Mm-hmm. And so it starts with that, and she's just sitting there like, wait.
Wait, what?
Do I need to know any of this?
Yeah.
It's like, don't worry. None of these characters are going to show up again, ever
again. I mean, it's kind of hokey. It's fun. I love his like ridiculous submarine plane he flies off in the end. That kind of reminded me of Sky Captain: The World of Tomorrow.
Oh God, the CG on that. Like I specifically mentioned it. I was just like, oh my God, this is beautiful. It's so out of place.
I know.
Yeah, I was watching that, and I had the similar thought, Chris, of like, this is very Hollywood, and I was questioning like, would we have rather like, I like the black and white, but like this is 1940s. What if they did it in the style of like the old Fleischer cartoons?
That could have been
would
really
that
fun.
have landed if they animated in that same like very rotoscopy style?
That could have been a fun way to do it. It felt a little bit tonally and visually like out from everything else we had seen. It just threw me off.
Especially since we've been to World War II in this universe.
That's true.
Oh, that is true.
Yeah.
And we've seen what World War II looks like. It was in color, surprisingly.
It was in color. Who knew? I thought that didn't start appearing until the mid-19th century.
Well, see, that only happens when you've got a time travel machine in the mix.
That's true.
Well, I mean, that's why JFK won, because he brought color.
Though, this does raise the question, is Spy Smasher the first superhero in the DCAU?
I love how you bring that up like we could answer that question.
Jonah Hex. Jonah Hex was
Jonah Hex.
Jonah Hex.
Jonah Hex is earlier. Yeah. Okay.
Jonah Hex and Batlash and I'm trying to remember who else is part of his team way back in the day. But you're right. He would have been one of the first.
The Native American
one of the
chief,
earliest. I know he's before Soul Power and Sparky.
Wait, which one's Sparky? Is that a...
Soul Power and Sparky were the duo.
Static Shock.
That's right. I forgot that Soul Power had the sidekick of Sparky. Because I forget everything.
Professor Menace.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
they didn't. Well, I guess like Shining Knight too was technically.
Oh,
if we want to go, how do we classify like superheroes? If we go back to King Arthur days,
that's true. Shining Knight Etrigan, who's
Etrigan.
Like kind of on the fence, but we count him. He's part of the Justice League, so he counts.
Dang, I can't believe y'all are out knowledging me.
It will be the last time this episode we do, hands down. But yeah, so Eiling reads this report, and then we go from there to a dinner that he's having with Waller, where, as we were talking about, he's basically saying like, no, the League is still a menace. We didn't like strike a deal. Like we lost, we surrendered, and Waller's more or less like, they're fine. Don't worry about it.
I loved that, like those lines. It just hit me real hard. He said, what was it specifically? He said, when one side loses ground and the other side gains, that's not a treaty. That's surrender.
Yeah.
And she just responds, it's a different world. Learn to live in it. and like as soon as she said that, I was just like, God damn, she told him to get woke.
She did.
Like it's so funny that like we live in this world where there's still so much like, get your politics out of my superheroes. This was never a thing. And then I'd go and throw this on from 15 years ago and be like, oh, it wasn't? It was never a thing?
Yeah, no, it's always been a thing. I love when people especially like what the X-Men are to like, why are the X-Men so woke? Why are they like an example of progressive policy or like civil rights? And you're like, did you never read an X-Men comic?
Yeah, it's not even the subplot. It's the plot.
It's literally the plot.
It's no subtext.
I don't understand it. But yeah, that conversation they have is so interesting. But the one line that really jumped out to me is Eiling says to Waller, "You've got some onions." And I was like, is this like a weird way of like saying you've got balls in a kid's joke because you can't say that? Like, I don't think I've ever heard the phrase "you've got some onions." Have either of you ever heard this?
You know what? I'm gonna Google that and see if anyone has ever said that. You've got some onions.
I mean, luckily it's J.K. Simmons saying it, so he can say it and it still lands. But it was a very bizarre line that threw me off.
The exact post that I'm finding on EnglishForums.com is from
This episode.
This episode.
Yeah, so the lines before it is "Don't tell me the bleeding hearts of Congress got to you." Amanda says, "I eat them alive." You would too. You've got some onions. Is it a cooking joke?
I don't. That's the thing.
That's
I don't
how I'm
know.
gonna read it as. Is she's not eating them raw. It's a slow roast and some onions in a crock pot.
They're simmered.
Yeah.
Maybe caramelized at this point.
Honestly, it's probably a double entendre that has elements of both readings in it.
Yeah. I think
they're thinking so many layers above us. It's like an onion.
So
yes. Cameron, throwing out the dad jokes here.
Not a
The
dad
Shrek
joke, a Shrek
jokes.
joke. I only do Shrek jokes now. 2022, it's just
Exclusively
Shrek jokes.
Shrek jokes. I mean, you know what? I think you're right though, Mattie, because there's that, and there is one more, at least what I read as a food-based double entendre when Eiling says that they were tossed around like a salad by a Superman. I was like, oh, okay.
Maybe he's just hungry. That's why he's so angry all
they
the time.
are at dinner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Do we ever see him actually eat?
No, they're just drinking like orange soda because they can't be drinking even like wine because it's a kid's cartoon. So it's kind of interesting, but then so we go from there and it's up at the Watchtower and everyone, including Superman, is spread thin across the galaxy. They're basically just down to like the bare bones of who's available, and so the remaining team has to fill in for Superman on a mission, which is to attend like this metro, basically like a Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade happening through the middle of Metropolis. And it's so cheesy and such a thing that you would put in a kid's cartoon, and also so perfect that like these heroes are being like thoroughly embraced and loved and supported, but they feel like they're being degraded because they're not actually saving the world. They're just standing there waving. And I really love how Stargirl gets like so upset about it and then totally put in her place by both Green Arrow and then was it the police captain who comes over and talks to them for a little bit.
I loved when they like cut away to the crowd and everyone's like, "Where's Superman?"
Yeah, it
right?
was kind of a weird mixed message because like it's not that she's wrong. Like Stargirl's not impossibly wrong. Like we're not like they don't want to see us.
And like this is also a development of her character that like has been a thing since the episode she did with Supergirl, where she just feels like she's in the shadow of other leaders. And,
all the time.
And I think going back to like the political messaging of it all, probably the reason that they did the unpowered heroes here was to be like, look, like. We are talking about the government issues and stuff like that. And normal people without powers are the ones, like, you're able to do something. You're able to make change. You're able to fight back against the wrongdoings and stuff like that. I think it was a message of trying to empower not just the heroes within the story itself, but the audience.
Right, just everyday people. I really like that they chose deliberately to have, only non-powered League members there. Because, like, essentially the only meta-human for the entire episode ultimately is Eiling. And he has that, brief moment of self-awareness where he finally figures that out and then seems to just fly away with no consequence.
Just like any other politician.
That's true. Yeah, that's I think, the point, maybe.
That was my one, like, big gripe with the thing, is that, like, it just resolves itself. He's just like, oh, okay, bye.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as we brought up very briefly beforehand, this is just a Hulk story. And what's more Hulk than just running away at the end?
That's true. Having no consequences for your actions.
Yeah, like you
entirely.
can't make it more Hulk-like.
Yeah, it's. I think maybe that's part of the reason I found it a little bit underwhelming is that the ending just doesn't really have an ending whatsoever. But there is some good stuff in there, and one of the things I really like about this episode is that it gives a lot of time to Vigilante, who we had a little bit of him in Hunter's Moon. But what I love here is that he's the hype man. Like he's literally going around and like hyping up all the other heroes around him. Like and it helps that it's Nathan Fillion obviously doing the voice, but it's actually like really sweet. And he has this kind of awareness and confidence the rest of them around him don't, and where he's actually going and like really being supportive of them, which I thought was just a nice thing for a hero to do.
Vigilante was so much fun in this episode.
He's great.
It's like after we finished it, my fiance was just like, I really like Vigilante, and I was like,
yeah,
shit, he shows up in a couple other episodes. But,
well, he doesn't talk ever again.
But like, yeah, no, I was gonna say that like in regards to him being the hype man, like it kind of going back to the like, hey audience, you don't have superpowers, but you can do something. Yeah. Like it really helps to give like a spotlight on like, hey, like even though you don't got superpowers, there's something about you that's special, and like even if you can't see it, others can. Vigilante right here is going to show that to you right now. All of these people don't know what
and guns.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, is it someone in the audience that makes that point of like, why is Vigilante here? He uses guns.
Yeah, someone does say it, which is interesting. Yeah. Especially because
which I do think is fun that like he doesn't show off his skill. He's always hyping up the other people. So, you know, Stargirl gets to make fireworks. Shining Knight gets to show off Winged Victory and a sword from Merlin. It's like nothing is about like the violence, except a sword.
Yeah, except for the sword. Except for they eventually
but
start
a magic sword.
A magic sword, though. Okay, and you mentioned this beforehand, Cameron, so I'm going to give you the opportunity now, because Sir Justin makes a comment about fighting someone. I didn't clock it because I don't care. But you, who loves Arthurian myth, I'm going to give you a moment here to tell us wwho he fought and why that matters. And when I say a moment, I mean a fucking moment.
The Tale of Blunderbore. Blunderbore is one of the three giants that Jack slays in Jack the Giant Slayer, which I learned is not Jack and the Beanstalk. They are two separate stories.
Really?
Did not know that until this morning. Yeah.
Damn, Jack has a whole continuity.
Yeah, so Jack has been around since Arthurian days. Jack was kind of the original Tom Sawyer, where he's just this kid who's too smart for his own good, and everyone kind of hates him. And so Arthur's like, hey, Jack, go slay these three giants that are like messing with the village over there. Blunderbore is the second giant he slays. He is also the original, like, quote unquote, nice guy, where he will kidnap husbands and kill them and fry them, and then present the meal to the wives to try and win them over. And when they refuse him, he then eats the wives.
You would describe this person as a nice guy?
The nice guy who tries to be nice and then immediately turns on you the second.
Tips his fedora.
Yes,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's a milady character.
He holds doors for people and occasionally eats them.
Yeah, and if you don't say thank you after holding the door, he roasts you online.
Yeah.
Who has not?
He doxes you.
In this situation.
Right, that everyday common situation where some guy just fries up your spouse.
God.
And then if you don't like it,
that's the one thing I'm looking forward to about getting married.
Yeah, the Blunderbores of the world.
God. Well, Cameron, I appreciate you did that, and actually it's surprisingly succinct amount of time, so thank you.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
It's a fun one. But I think one of the things about this episode that I didn't really love was the battle itself feels pretty repetitive. Like it goes on for a long time, and it doesn't really shift into any different directions. Basically, just every hero gets taken out by Eiling until there's really no one left but the people to step in and say like, hey, no, you're the problem. And I appreciate the ending of it, but the battle itself just felt, like a little bit, it kind of kept going on and on. I did love when they beam in some reserve leaguers, and it's Crimson Avenger and Speedy. And even Green Arrow's like, really? You brought in my former sidekick to help us here?
Former partner?
Yeah.
I get narratively about the battle going on too long, but there were so many points where I was just like, wow, that's such a cool shot, and it was only on screen for like a couple of frames, and like somebody boarded that and animated it, and like that one shot of like Green Arrow and Speedy having their bows pulled, like you see that screenshot online all the time, and I thought that it was going to be like a longer shot than it was, going back and revisiting the episode for the first time in forever, and it's just there and gone.
Yeah,
and
it's
I'm
second
just
and a half.
and I'm just like, wow, they took the time to like just plot this out, like and stage all the action as you know, thoroughly as they did.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me was impressive. That was enough to like keep my attention, even if narratively it was just like, okay, I get it. They're getting their asses handed to them. Yep.
Yeah, but each of them like got their moment. Like you see Stripe try and take down Eiling, and Eiling rips the armor off.
Yeah, and it's about to crush him.
Yeah, and then a kid comes and saves the day, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kids behind construction equipment, always cool.
Yeah,
always
swinging
safe,
around a wrecking ball.
Always a thumbs up from Warner Brothers.
Those kids, I think, were supposed to be Jack
The
Kirby's Newsboy Legion, right?
Yeah.
So that was a fun little reference. There's so much like packed into this story. Like, it's obvious to me, at least, that this one was made for adults rather than, you know, kids, because like all of the references that they throw in here were like older, more obscure stuff that's like
deep cuts,
gonna be for people who like haven't necessarily been watching the cartoons, but like were in tune with the comics 10, 20, 30 years beforehand.
Right. I mean, that's why your fiance enjoyed this episode so much, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like, oh, finally, the Newsboy Legion is getting their time in the spotlight.
Oh, I love seeing Jeremy Jordan and the Newsies show up here.
I mean, and Mattie, you bring up a very good point, which is like, you know, now it's super easy for us to look at that and go like, oh, I'm sure someone has put online like the trivia of where this came from. But in 2006, you know, the internet obviously existed, but wasn't quite what it is now. It wouldn't have been quite as easy to just go to like literally the DCAU wiki and find it. Like that really was for the people who wouldn't know who that is, because that culture of, oh, I know this is referencing something, let me go figure out what it's referencing, didn't really exist yet.
Right.
So, and that's the thing that, you know, we've been enjoying about this season in particular, which, you know, from a narrative perspective does not hold up especially as much as season 2, but it's been just like how deep and weird and crazy they'll go with their comics pulls. Like the battle at the Earth's core or whatever we did a little while back. Like that one in particular, I was like, I don't know who any of these people are. Like any, I usually at least vaguely know who it is. Like I have no idea what's going on with this.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts what they decided to throw in this season. They just decided to go all over the place, and like it definitely makes it feel a bit more disconnected from everything else. When like the Cadmus story right before it was just like, we're connecting everything now, and this season's just like, okay, but now we're going into different directions and everything. But like, it's really appreciated that like that they did do that. Just because like it's obviously for people, you know, who cared about this stuff and weren't necessarily cartoon watchers, an older audience.
Yeah, an older audience of comics fans.
I'm
that's what they watch.
So curious what the writing room must have been like for this season, where it's like all the writers just trying to out nerd each other, like who can make the deepest cut in their episode.
Well, so you know what's funny is that 7 of the 13 episodes were all written by the same guy.
Dwayne McDuffie?
No, they were all 7 of them were written by Matt Wayne.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think
he won, is what you're saying. He out-nerded the rest.
Yeah, he was the biggest nerd in the room.
Yeah, and I know Dwayne McDuffie is still on this season. He may have done more story than actual script, though.
Yeah, so I'm looking at it. Yeah, Matt Wayne, one of Dwayne McDuffie's college friends, and wrote a lot of Milestone comics. And he wrote for Legion of Superheroes, Batman, The Brave and the Bold, Ben 10, and the Superhero Squad show. Yeah,
so Matt Wayne wrote 7 of them, and then Dwayne McDuffie wrote 4 of them, and then wrote 5 of them, and then had story on 2 of them.
Okay, yeah.
So it was basically Matt Wayne and Dwayne McDuffie, old college friends, just being like, hey, let's do whatever we want.
Good for them. Good for them getting to that point where like, hey, we can just do whatever the hell we want on this show, and it's still going to get made, and people are still going to love it. So
I love that, like, it doesn't seem like Bruce Timm ever told them no.
No. I think at this point especially, I think they knew like this was going to be their last season. Because the last one was supposed to be their last. And like, okay, we have one more. Just do whatever you feel like. Let's go crazy with it.
Right.
Which is pretty fun. And then And especially the next episode, we'll talk about just like how crazy it gets, which is really fantastic. But yeah, this one does kind of end abruptly with Eiling just realizing like, oh, I guess I'm the menace. And then I guess like the final button message on it is that it's trying to teach us as an audience what the characters in this town, the civilians, learn, which is that the other heroes are heroes too. So like it ends with all the kids being like, oh no, like I'm gonna be Crimson Avenger, I'm gonna be vigilante, which is cute, but it also felt a little bit like you're telling us that these characters are cool. You have showed us they're cool, but like this little button is a final reminder of like, hey, in case you forgot, these characters are cool. I'm like, you don't have to tell me this. I know.
I think it just kind of puts that like message of like, hey, how like how I've been saying it's about audience empowerment. I think they're ending it on like the kids realizing like, hey, I can be these heroes. They don't have powers. I don't have powers. Like it's the inspiration, and I think it's just them trying to say, hey, I want you to walk away from this episode inspired. Do something.
I want to see the kid who always wants to play the creeper.
Oh my god!
Jumps around everywhere.
God, I need that kid in my life. Wait, no, hold on. Hold on. That's probably a sentence that can be taken out of context.
We have great admiration for the kid who loves the creeper and dresses accordingly and goes and just embraces himself.
One moment that I do want to like point out in between where we were talking about the fight and where we're talking about the end now is specifically when Eiling's beating the shit out of Sir Justin.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
First, like that whole back and forth between them is just, it's great writing. I think the staging of the shots with like Sir Justin trying to get up with Eiling there in the background is just like, it's beautiful. It looks brilliant. But that old woman coming in at the end and saying, how many of us do you have to kill to keep us safe? Just like, that shit cuts.
That's a great line.
Like God, I wish I could write anything that good.
I know, right?
Well, I think it's now after the Suicide Squad, I feel like that joke is so much, or that line is so much funnier after Peacemaker's line of like, I'll kill as many women and children as I need to keep the peace.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like that's what Eiling is turning into. He's just Peacemaker.
But yeah, Mattie, it's a great point. Like that line is so good, and not only is it so great, but that they were able to write a scenario in which a line like that really lands and actually carries a lot of meaning too. Because like out of context, that could feel like a little bit blunt and pointed, but here it actually feels like really grounded to the situation and really prescient. And yeah, okay, fine. You've turned me around on the episode. It's really good.
Wow, Mattie, you've done something that I've been trying to do for 5 years, which has changed.
Well, actually,
Chris's
listen to
mind.
Mattie. That's the difference.
That's fair.
Wait, hold on. So you're saying that if we redo the Zeta and I'm here,
no force on earth would make me go back and rewatch Zeta. I'm sorry, Bob Goodman. I know you're a lovely person, but I'm not doing it. I can't.
Fair enough. It's not his fault. It's Kids WB's fault.
I will never blame Kids WB for anything. They've only made good choices with Lunatics Unleashed, season 1 and season 2.
I also like something that we glossed past. I think it was in the Sir Justin segment of the fight. Was like, we definitely got a "you people" line out of Eileen at one point, and I'm sitting here like, okay, the metaphor doesn't necessarily land because like superpowered people aren't necessarily, a like an oppressed minority.
Yes, exactly. At least not in this universe. At
the same time, like with the metaphors that they're trying to, drag out, I was just like, man, because like this was like when Islamophobia was at its height, right? Like post 9/11 and everything, like, and I know that for sure because I was raised in it. Like I was fucking like given books for like Christmas and birthday presents about the evils of Islam and stuff like that. And so like looking at the political messaging of this specific episode and how it's about how America's acting post 9/11 and shit like that, like that line hit real hard. Like, I was just like, I was sitting there thinking about it, and like, it doesn't, like, I get what they were intending. It doesn't necessarily like work in narrative, like the longer you think about it, but it was appreciated nonetheless.
Yeah, and you raise a good point, which is I've seen like bits of trivia and bits of conversations with a lot of the writers on this who were consistently very critical of how the government basically handled things post 9/11, and how far like the Patriot Act and a lot of that ideology went in terms of like changing things. And when we were all kids when we were watching this, so how, like we're not really aware of all of this, but it just goes to show like these writers actually like really were looking at the real world at the time and finding ways to incorporate a lot of their like fears and concerns and criticisms into a kid's cartoon, which you don't really appreciate until now when we have greater context for it. But I mean, it does speak to the level of sophistication on this. They were never concerned about just making something dumb and entertaining. They wanted to tell us things that were meaningful to them as well. And okay, damn it, now it's a great episode. I'll acknowledge it.
Yay, it's gonna make the short list.
Whoa! I did not go that far.
Hey, this is the epilogue to the Cadmus arc.
Okay, I will say this though. I think from that perspective, I actually think this undoes more than it wraps up, because like we already knew that Waller over time kind of changed her perspective in the league because of literally in the episode epilogue. And I think just because Eiling never reappears, to my understanding, and is just kind of like left floating out there in the ether, that to me feels like a loose plot thread that I find unsatisfying. Like it is really like the messaging in the episode is really fantastic, but I think if you're talking about adding on to the Cadmus arc, I don't think this actually adds a lot.
Yeah, Matty, back me up here.
What you're saying is when we finally end up getting #JL reunion, you just want Patriot Act Part 2.
That's exactly it.
That's fine.
Yeah,
that's
the
fine.
only villain is going to be Great Eiling.
Cameron.
Part two?
Cameron, Chris wants this to be a two-parter.
All right, here's the pitch.
What have I done? How have I
We need
found myself
Booster
in
Gold.
this situation?
Who are the other non-powered characters in the league? Booster Gold, bring him in.
Blue Beetle now with Justice League Infinity. He's canon.
Oh, there you go.
That's outside of my dome of knowledge.
The Question.
Oh, hell yeah, the Question come back.
Y'all have to read Justice League Infinity.
I know. I'm way behind on. I haven't started
beautiful.
reading that, and I'm way behind on Batman Adventures Continues. So
You're not missing anything.
I know, but I've been literally like I've been subscribed to it this entire time. So every like month, I just get an email like, "You've paid for another comic." I'm like, "Oh fuck, I gotta go read this at some point."
Read Justice League Infinity. You can leave Adventures Continue to the side.
Oh, okay.
I wanted that book to be so good. Read the 2 issues that Jordan Gibson colored.
Okay.
Not colored. Drew. Mm-hmm. He drew. God, which ones were it? There was. I think it's like issue 4 of season 2,
okay.
And then the holiday special, which actually wasn't in Batman Adventures Continue. It was like in an anthology that DC put out.
Oh, okay. I mean,
in December.
Me being me, I've bought them all, and they're on my iPad and haven't read them, so I'm going to read them all at some point. So, even if it's begrudgingly.
Get ready to be frustrated.
I'm sure I will be. Any other thoughts on this episode before we move on?
I feel like we've covered my thoughts.
Okay.
I don't know if Cameron had anything else. I feel like he was in the middle of trying to pitch a second part.
No, I was on my toes trying to think of anything. When they were like announcing the backup coming in, the whole time I was just crossing my fingers for Booster Gold to pop up. And I was a little disappointed when he didn't, which I think is like the fun of that moment. It's like you're supposed to be disappointed.
Yeah, it's supposed to be underwhelming, which is fantastic. All right, so let's move on to the Great Brain Robbery. So in this episode, an attempt to locate Grodd through the Flash's mind goes awry, and Flash and Luthor swap minds into each other's bodies. While the League tries to stop Lex from escaping the Watchtower in Flash's body, Flash must pretend to be Lex and lead a train heist lest he is discovered. So right up at the top, Mattie, what was it about this episode in particular that made you want to come on and talk about it?
Because I have a personal story related to
all
it,
right.
of course. So back in, God, what was it? 2013, I believe it was. I was in an emo hardcore band
Incredible.
called My Brother the Ocean.
Love this.
It was a lot of fun. Had so much fun doing the band. But we played a Halloween show one year. I think it was 2013. And it was like, if you come in a costume, cover charge is cheaper, et cetera, et cetera. And so we, since I was the one who booked it, I encouraged all of the local acts to, also dress up in costumes and try to theme their bands and everything. And since this was around the time that I finally started watching Justice League Unlimited, I was just like, okay, we're going to be the Justice League. We are going to dress up as the Justice League. So before the show, we were all dressed up in the Justice League's civilian clothing kind of situation. A thing that nobody would have really got it, except for our bassist was dressed up in a fucking tux as Bruce Wayne. And so everyone's just what is y'all's thing tonight? What are y'all doing? We wouldn't tell anybody, and so we finally came out as the Justice League. Our bassist was Batman. Our drummer was Aquaman. I can't remember. I think our guitarist was Green Lantern.
Okay. Hell yeah.
I think. And I was Wally.
Were you a singer?
Yes.
Incredible.
Yeah. So in between songs, when we're tuning and everything, we were using clips to set up the next song. And we used the World of Cardboard at one, because when they punch, there's a bass drop that goes into the start of our song, and it felt like it was gonna be cool. But there was one towards the start where I was like, okay, I want to get this Flash mask off of my fucking face as soon as possible, because it's a morph suit.
Oh yeah.
And so we used the clip from this episode of Lex unmasking Wally, the I don't know who this is, as justification for me to get that thing off my fucking face 2 songs in, because it was so hard to breathe. I've got photos from there, and I think that set is actually online in full. Somewhere.
Oh really?
I think I threw it up on Vimeo or something at some point. I'll try to find it. It was not professionally recorded at all, but it was a fun time regardless.
That is brilliant that you use that moment, because that is one of the best moments in the whole episode. Of he literally oh, I can at least figure out what the Flash's identity is. Takes the mask off. I have no idea who the hell this is.
God, that specific moment has just been clipped in me for forever, and it's stuck out as But there's so many good moments from this episode. That's just one of the many.
This is,
we've been talking about it for years. This is probably the second most quoted episode that we've had, since the last one being the one with the Flash and Trickster.
Oh yeah, Flash and Substance. Yeah, no,
Flash is just a quotable laugh.
He is.
Yeah.
He's so much fun, and they get into the plot of it pretty quickly. Pretty quickly figure out how to force a brain swap situation, which is a combination of Dr. Fate's magic and Grodd and Lex's mind technology. But I think for me, the most fun thing in this whole episode is that they swap voice actors too. So now all of a sudden, Clancy Brown is playing Wally West, and Micheal Rosenbaum is, very fittingly playing Lex Luthor, having done it before on Smallville. But to hear them impersonate each other's characters is so much fun. Clancy Brown in particular, I think for me, really steals this episode. Bringing in that sort of tonality and energy to the Flash, but still in his voice. It's endlessly funny to listen to.
No, because I'm evil.
Exactly.
Yes, that is my second favorite quote from this episode. It's Dr. Polaris asking, "You're not going to wash your hands?" No, because I'm evil.
Which has a lot more weight to it now that we're living in a fucking pandemic.
It does actually, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Flash is the worst person to have to be undercover amongst the Legion of Doom. So he's so out of his depth, which would make it so entertaining.
Well, in all aspects but one, because there's one villain who was very happy that Wally came along. Miss Talia, or Tala. Apparently, we learned canonically, Lex is not good in bed.
I mean...
And canonically, we also learned Wally is.
Are we surprised?
Well, sorry, we'll rephrase that. Not good in bed. Is a gracious lover.
Exactly.
And that is the very obvious. Of course, Lex is not a gracious lover.
He's a very self-centered person. Are we surprised about this at all?
I think my favorite part about it, there's aspects of that situation that are kind of like, the more you think about it, the more it's just like, oh,
this is
oh no,
a little sketchy.
This is kind of
yeah.
We're getting into some Revenge of the Nerds territory.
But
Yes.
just the best part of it, when Grodd finds out that it's Wally and Lex's body, and Tala comes in, and like I don't think Grodd knows that her and Wally like just fucked, but he says, Tala, I miss when I used to be able to bend you to my will, right there in front of Wally, and he's just like, oh. I'm now, penis cousins with the monkey.
Yeah, it's such a weird situation. And yeah, Cameron, to your point, it's like when you're an adult, you look back and it's like, oh, there's like some very questionable decisions around consent happening. I know they're also partly playing this for laugh because, Wally, the, constantly unlucky in love person who's always like flirting with everyone and never finding any sort of success, like all of a sudden does and is very overwhelmed and surprised by it. It's very bizarre. And I do like at the very end though when Tala realizes that normal Lex is back, she's very disappointed.
Yeah, she's not doing a lot to protect him.
No, not happy about what that means. But it's clear that like the writers really knew how to make this fun and funny, but also make it work in context. Like I really love how Lex knows exactly how to use Flash's powers to his advantage all the time. Like the fact that he goes up to the Zeta Beam technician, holds his fingers to his head. It looks silly initially, like he's doing like a fake gun to the guy's head, but he's like, I will vibrate my fingers and it'll go straight through your skull. He actually knows how to make the Flash's powers deadly in a way that Wally, I'm sure, is aware of, but actively avoids because that's not the kind of person that he is.
I didn't think about this while I was watching the episode, but now that you bring it up, like the fact that last season, like he was trying to put himself in like an Amazo body and like bond with Brainiac and everything, and it adds more weight to that. It makes it a lot more terrifying. Like, what would Lex be like with powers? We get the answer to it. Like he doesn't have the Amazo ability to absorb everyone's powers, but he's just got the Flash and immediately is making death threats.
Yeah, well, and he is constantly defeating all the other League members. Like, he knows how to go up against, like, even GL, who is one of the most powerful members, and he's able to stop him because he knows how to use the powers. And it is really, really scary. I hadn't thought about that, but it's a good point. Like, it shows us why the stakes are so high that Lex not reunite with Brainiac, because he would be absolutely terrifying. And actually, now that I think about it, it's also interesting, too, because Flash is the one that defeated him. He had Brainiac. And Flash is the only one that could stop him. And now it seems kind of like full circle that he gets the Flash's abilities.
This isn't a funny episode, it's a scary episode.
It's a scary episode. But like,
This is a warning.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. At its core, like, it really does establish why this is so dangerous that Lex, get access to anything that can make him more powerful. Because just with his mind, he's able to, constantly thwart his other Legion members, right? I mean, even when Dr. Polaris, like, threatens to basically have a coup, Lex shuts him down and tells him, like, oh yeah, all of you who got, repowered and modified by me, yeah, there's failsafes in all of those, so don't fuck with me.
And this is after he no longer has any fucking superpowers. And one of the people on, like, the Legion, as dumb as he is, Bizarro, has the powers of Superman.
Yeah, there were two thoughts that I had when they immediately switched minds. I loved the moment where Wally first gets up in Lex's body and he tries to run to the door and is immediately winded.
Right.
Like, that is the most relatable moment I've seen in all of JLU, in all of the Timmverse. But the other, and I think, Mattie, as you just described it, I think answers my question really succinctly, is like, if you were woken up in a super powered body, how long would it take you to understand, like, how strong you were. And you know, mentioning that the Flash or that Lex has kind of been anticipating this moment for years now. He kind of knows how to handle this, but like, if you woke up and you immediately have super speed, like you wouldn't know how to stop. You wouldn't know how to like not be in super speed all the time.
Yeah. And I love that Lex has probably spent years just like sitting there and stewing, thinking about what he would do if he had these powers, and just being so annoyed at watching, especially like Wally, as powerful as he is, basically just being a jokester and not taking it seriously at all. It must drive him insane, knowing that these powers exist, he doesn't have them.
You know, you think about it, and his obsession with Superman, going all the way back to Superman the Animated Series, has like always been about power. And when you think about specifically the switch with Wally, we had the whole Superman the Animated Series episode where they were trying to see who was faster, who had you know, more power in that aspect, whether it was Superman or Wally. And while we never found out, like, as the audience, because it ended in a tie, it's, you know, from the standpoint of Lex Luthor, you know, I'm sure that probably caught attention and was like, wait, this guy, like, he may not have as many powers as Superman, but on one, he's level with him. And so waking up in that body had to be a step towards, and like you said, Wally was the one who was able to take him down. So at this point, Lex might even be like, wait, Wally is more powerful than Superman.
Yeah.
The more you, like, dissect it, it's just frightening.
Well, yeah, because I was thinking in the middle of it, like, I know, like, GL is kind of holding back because they said, like, we don't want to hurt the body.
Yeah.
But also it shows, like, how powerful Wally would be if Wally took things seriously. Like, he is unstoppable. He takes down, you see that hallway where every league member is down.
Yeah. You know, he takes out GL with a bowl of pudding. So.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, there are those little moments where, like, you don't think Lex would do that. But, like, it's still the Flash. So you have to do those kind of gimmicks every now and then.
Well, and I can also see Lex, you know, he'll utilize any asset he has at his disposal, which in the case, like, was the cafeteria and all the forks and knives and the food. But you can also see him, like, he's a dick, right? So you can see him just putting a little bit of that spite in there, knowing, like, oh, I took you guys out with a bowl of pudding.
Yeah.
And you'll always know that
he also knows that GL won't do anything to hurt him. So he can kind of get away with a few more things.
It's wild, and I really love all that stuff up on the Watchtower. And then, you know, on the other side of things, you have Wally and Lex's body, and they're about ready to do this, you know, this train robbery, making the whole title of the episode even more fun. And I love that he doesn't know what the plan is, so he's like, okay, you all tell me your part of the plan. And he slowly figures out that it's actually a very simple, like, evil plot. It's basically like that, you know, Kosnia is now joining the EU, and they're getting a massive influx of euros, and they're just going to rob the train carrying all of the euros. Like, this is...
How do you think Brexit has affected Kosnia?
Well, like, I did have a moment, like, I don't know how that sort of thing works. Like, if someone joins, you know, when someone joins the EU and they have to change up their currency, like... I would even think that just the creation of probably hundreds of millions, I forget what they say, it was like 600 million,
100 million.
100 million.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like even just the creation of like 100 million euros, like the inflation, wouldn't that be a thing? Again, I'm not an economist, I don't know how it all works, but I had a moment of like, I wonder if that's how that actually works? I don't know.
Chris, I'm gonna let you in on a secret. Money's fake.
Well, I know it's fake, but
by the fake rules that we make.
Right, yeah, I know money's fake. So it's like, okay, so like the inflation in of itself is like semi-artificial because they just, you know, literally generated more cash. But like, is that then theoretically offset by like the, you know, GDP increase that comes with now having Kosnia be part of the EU? Again, I don't know how this works.
Yeah, because you have a whole new population coming in to now spend the money, and new shops coming in to retrieve the money. But also... this is a cartoon talking about a fake principle, so it's fake money. But I still love to talk about it.
Yeah, but it's real money in a fake cartoon, so that's why I'm curious.
On a more nitty-gritty level, where the fuck are the Kosnian people supposed to go to get these euros and get rid of their Kasnia bucks. I don't know. What is the currency of Kasnia?
Yeah, they go to the bank and change them out.
The last time we saw Kasnia, like it's a war-torn country. Like everyone's impoverished. Like it's weird that like they're just like, yeah, they're joining the EU now. Things are good for Kasnia. Like everything's different. Like I just want to know more about Kasnia. I want like
I mean, clearly the princess is doing a great job since she took over. So
true.
Learning some of those life lessons from Wonder Woman and putting them to good use.
Well, when's the last time in the real world we saw a currency switch in a country?
I don't know. I'm a podcaster, Cameron.
It's happening. It's happening right now. We're going from U.S. dollars to NFTs.
Yeah, we are.
You're not wrong.
How many poorly drawn monkeys does that thing cost?
Can we turn this podcast into an NFT? Is that how that works? I don't know.
Sure.
Let's not find out.
Let's not find out. No one would buy it anyways if they could. But you know, it's what's interesting is that they more or less get away with it. Like they are essentially like at the point when they are getting ready to load all the money onto like the ship and get out of there. And it's just like it seems weirdly easy in this universe for them to pull off this heist. And I get that they have Sinestro, they have lots of like super high powered people, but you're also wondering like how is there not an infrastructure in place to like immediately respond to a threat like this? Like where's the call to the League?
Well, I have a much broader question for all of this. Mm-hmm. Tala can make portals. Why? Why are they just portaling there and back?
Yeah, why not just like literally portal the train into like the swamp, unload everything,
or just like portal themselves? Yeah, just portal themselves into the train.
Yeah.
Why do they need to fly there? Why are they loading it back onto their plane when they could just open a portal and push it all just straight through from the train? This is what Lex was missing. Like this is why Lex needed to be there.
I think the episode answers that question for you in that Lex doesn't really care about Tala.
Oh, yeah. That is true.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. He would never want to give her control over the whole plan. He needs to have a lot of different people involved so he can have contingencies in place and to screw them over whenever he needs to at his whim. But yeah, I mean, you know, eventually they figure out how a way to like get them swapped back, and of course, you know, they are immediately able to figure out that it's Wally as he threatens to, you know, share GL's like childhood nickname. But that I love that none of the Legion believe that it's actually Lex who's come back, and they're basically threatening to like torture him until he reveals it, and that's when he, you know, shows his ace up the sleeve and takes out Dr. Polaris and threatens all of them because, you know, at the end of the day, he's just a dick, and he's just like Batman, right? He has plans in place. He just doesn't care and he use them whenever he wants.
So my question after this episode: how would every other League member do if they had to switch brains with a evil counterpart? Because you mentioned that Wally's probably the worst one to choose because he's the least evil, but I would argue Superman would have no idea how to do anything.
I disagree. Superman's already has two entirely different identities, and has, you know, kept a separating line between himself and Clark Kent. And I think he'd be able to, having known Lex for so long, would be able to act that out.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think Superman could blend in. Batman would obviously take it as an opportunity to undermine every single person in the room as much as he possibly could.
Batman would fucking clear. Season would be over.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The whole universe would be done. He'd go through and immediately find a way to take out all. He would realize that Lex has contingencies in place and just turn them all on at once and take out the entire Legion.
Well, we already saw last time they kidnapped Batman that even without Lex's body, he already controlled the League.
Yeah, way back in Secret Society, yeah, when he literally took out the entire League despite being, or the Legion of Doom, or I guess, again, the Secret Society. He was able to take them all out, even though he had his hands chained and all he had was just words at his disposal, and he took them down.
GL would be fine.
GL, yeah, he would catch on pretty quick. I think he would be fine. He could blend in. I don't think Wonder Woman would even attempt to blend in. I think she would immediately just start like beating the shit out of people and trying to get out of there as fast as possible.
Well, yeah, because that is the other question is like, who else would they have? Like, let's not go into the assumption they all switch minds with Lex. Like, what would their counterparts? So, like, if she switches minds with Cheetah, she could pretty much easily probably just take out everyone and escape.
Well, and she's just like a warrior at the end of the day. Like, so her answer's gonna be to beat everybody.
I don't know if the story would work as well though. If
that's
switching
true.
minds with Lex, right? Like, I mean, it's not like Flash switched minds with Gorilla Grodd.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like, this season, we've seen Wonder Woman is trying to work on her diplomacy.
True.
It's like she would try, I think, to have the conversation and then beat everybody up.
I don't know, because like we also like if we want to do a direct 1-to-1 with that, we also had another episode where Flash was like in the den of villainy of his own villains, and he acted a bit different there than he did here. Like, I don't think that they would necessarily be like, let me do the thing Wonder Woman would do. It would just be, let me do the thing that like I think Lex would do,
which is not wash his hands.
And it.
Yeah,
and so it's I think it's more about their perception of Lex than it is about what they would personally want to get done.
Okay, that is true. Yeah, and from that context, yeah, Superman would understand the role.
Yeah, he can make it work. There's one other fun little thing that happened this episode that I had to bring up, which is we do learn where the Flash falls in the Justice League ID code stack.
Do.
He's number 6 because we have speculated at length about where everyone falls, and I do not remember everyone up to this point. But we've
Wonder
kind of
Woman
assumed
is 3.
Yeah, Wonder Woman's 3. I think GL might have been
4,
something like that. But we've speculated that maybe the Flash would be at the bottom at number 7, and we've learned that he's number 6. Which I think still leaves room for Superman to be number 7, because Batman would be that kind of spiteful dick.
You don't think Superman's number 2?
I'm trying to remember. Was Batman number 1? Or do we know Batman's?
Wait, hold on. No,
do you know the list?
Chris,
Yeah.
Chris, look at it this way. We're saying Flash is number 6, but he's not number 6. He's 006. It's a 3-digit.
Oh, you think someone's 000?
No, so what you're asking is who is 007?
You are right. You are 100% right. Who in this universe is 007? Oh, even subconsciously, my brain needed to know the answer to that.
Would Bruce give... I mean, we can assume that Batman is a James Bond fan, right?
Yeah.
Can we make that assumption?
He is. Batman: The Adventures Continue.
Oh, that's right.
Has him and Timm wanting to go see the new James Bond movie.
That's great. I don't think he would. I don't think he would give anyone 007 just to honor James Bond.
The number's been retired.
If James Bond ever wants to join the league.
Yeah, he retired the number so no one else could have it.
007 is King from Batman Beyond, as portrayed by George Lazenby.
There we go. Yeah, I love that. I love that we always thought the Flash would be like, of the original 7, the lowest ranked one, and we know he's not. So the question remains, who is 007? But yeah, this whole episode was really, really fun and silly, but in a way that just was delightful. Like, it's such a fun time.
For sure. I love that it's back to back with an episode that's like much more thoughtful. It's like, yeah, we gave you something to chew on last week anyway. Here's a joke that we came up because Lex Luthor is the Flash in Smallville.
Well, I mean, I also there's one bit joke at the very beginning which I also love that really sets the tone, and it's when Lex enters the main hall with all the villains and like, okay, we accepted you as our new leader. We hated that whole thing about him turning everyone into monkeys. What's your plan? Are you going to make us all bald?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is such a... Like, Sinestro just, like, digging in immediately. Which makes me laugh even more knowing that Mark Strong played him in a couple years later, and we did get bald Sinestro.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Was that in the Ryan Reynolds movie?
Yeah. He played Sinestro. I think he saw the Widow's Peak.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he's got the little Vegeta going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, Mark Strong, perfect casting.
Oh yeah, it's the super pushback hairline.
I still have not watched that movie. I will at
either.
one point. I will at one point.
I know.
But bonus episode.
Exactly. It's like, I don't want to watch it. But yeah, any other thoughts on this episode before we move on to some plugs here?
It was a blast. I had fun.
Well, good.
Those are my thoughts.
Love it. All right. Well, then let's do some bat plugs here. And Mattie, as our guest of honor, what do you have to plug?
Oh, God. I mean, well, I assume if you are listening to Timm talk, you might also be a Watchtower Database fan, which is what I am a part of. We just today, as we are recording, released the newest issue of our webcomic, Legacies of the DCAU.
Oh, shit.
It is based in 2019. The DCAU's 2019, which is around the time of Batman's retirement, and it kind of moves forward that plot thread that we've seeded with the last, I think, couple of issues, and it's a lot of fun. I just read it right before coming on because they didn't give it to me early, but. It's a blast. We've also been doing a lot of Batman: The Adventures Continue and Justice League Infinity breakdowns, and if you're just like no, Timm talk is good, that's my fill of DCAU content. Well, guess what? I've got a fucking Ben 10 video coming out sometime soon.
That's right. You keep making reference to this epic Ben 10 video.
I don't know the date specifically, but we're trying to get it out by the end of the month.
Okay.
I just filmed the majority of the footage for it the other day. I've just got like one last thing that I've got to film. I'm really excited for that. I've spent the last year with this, not even the whole franchise, just the first show of the franchise. I spent the last year with it. I watched it twice. I tried to figure out why people like it. And it took me some time to click with it. And so the video is very much going to be going through my journey with it.
Your slow descent into madness.
My complaints, the things that I hated, up to me finding something in it that is for me, that connected with me on an emotional level after going back through it a second time. And I'm really excited for people to see that one. It's I have not ever worked on a video for this amount of time.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Which is the country that like super stuck on to Ben 10?
Didn't they have like a huge Brazilian fan base? Maybe
it was. I thought it was like a Nordic country. I thought it was like Norway or Sweden or Finland. I had this talk with one of my college professors about it because I think he wrote one episode, where like it blew up the way that Pokemon blew up in America. Where like toy stores, like Toys R Us was converted to like the Ben 10 store that just sold other toys.
Huh.
Like it took over the entertainment space for one country.
Interesting.
And like that's why it lasted so long. Is like they were making so much money overseas. Like we'll just keep making the show.
Hey, good on him. I have never seen Ben 10. I know little to nothing about it.
It's fun. It's really fun.
I'm excited to get to the next series in the franchise. It's got Dwayne McDuffie on board. This first season had a lot of DCAU creatives attached, but it wasn't like necessarily like the high tier creatives, and so like when I would see like an episode from somebody I knew, like it was like Marty Eisenberg or whoever. And it's just like, okay, like they made some fine Batman episodes, whatever. But like, just going into a show that I had no previous like attachment to, it was just it's difficult. It's hard to figure out, what to like about a show that so many people your age are nostalgic for that you've just never been a part of. Because like a lot of it's just attached to the youth. Of experiencing it. And like I think that's something I figured out because the more I watch it, I'm like, okay, like there's a lot of cool creature designs and stuff like that, and like I've found myself going out and actively buying Ben 10 merch because I like the aesthetic of it, but from a narrative standpoint it was hard to figure out what to talk about. But I finally did. I think this video is going to be like an hour long, so I'm hoping it clicks with people.
Well, congratulations on surviving your own personal Heart of Darkness into the world of Ben 10. I mean, outside of like the Watchtower Database stuff, is there anything like else you watched recently or read recently that you really love that you want people to check out?
You know, I'm going through a rewatch of Doctor Who.
Oh, nice.
Fiance.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's been a lot of fun. I watched like the Eccleston all the way up to like the start of Capaldi years and years ago, and I kind of fell off. And it's been a blast going back and revisiting it. We've been doing the like Whoniverse though, so not just Doctor Who, but also Torchwood and Sarah Jane Adventures. I'll say that for the most part, the spinoffs are kind of skippable. Feeling there's some fun stuff to them, but so much of the heart of that world is obviously in the Doctor himself, and it's been fun to revisit.
I did the same thing a number of years ago, like kind of got up to the beginning of the Capaldi era and fell off. Where is it streaming somewhere now? It's
all on HBO Max.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Which is also where I've been watching the Matrix series.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really wanting to watch Resurrections. I've heard a lot of back and forth about it. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet, but
yeah, I rewatched the original trilogy prior to watching the new one, and I remember I forget if I've talked about this on the show yet or not, but the original trilogy, like I remember being a little bit disappointed by the sequels when I saw them in theaters, but revisiting them now, there's actually a lot of really fantastic stuff in them, and both the sequels went up in my esteem on a rewatch. I will say this about Resurrections. There are some really, really fascinating, brilliant ideas in there, particularly in like the first half hour. Overall, though, I did not find the movie particularly entertaining, and it didn't have the scale or the spectacle that the original ones did. Like, you know, even if you don't love those sequels, you can at least pinpoint to like one set piece is absolutely brilliant that you will like just go back and watch on YouTube.
Right.
And there's really nothing I felt like that about this new one, but I think it's still worth watching if you're really intrigued by that world.
Right. Like I've a lot of the back and forth that I've seen just from being so heavily online, it has been like there's a pretty clear like defining line of like it seems like most of the straight guys that I know are just like, yeah, fuck this movie. But like people who are queer and more so like the trans people that I follow and talk to have been much more forgiving all the way into like thinking it's a fucking masterpiece. So I'm curious to see where I end up falling on that. Once I get to it. We've watched the first two movies and we were going to watch the third one yesterday, but I watched Justice League Unlimited.
We diverted you from your journey to join us. But no, I definitely recommend it. It's worth watching, Resurrections. So, Cameron, what about you? What do you got to plug this week?
What have I been watching? Cobra Kai season 4 came out, and it's I'm so torn on this show because like I love it obviously because it's bad entertaining content, but it's like it's one of those shows where I'm almost embarrassed to talk about how much I enjoy it, and it takes a lot to embarrass me on the content that I watch.
That is a truer statement has never been spoken, Cameron.
Yeah. And I don't know why, because like it's not a bad show by any means.
But it
you just said it is. Make up your mind.
That's why I'm so torn on it.
It does seem to be kind of like universally beloved, though. Despite like quality aside, people really seem to love it no matter what. So
yeah, it's they understand the basics of character development and the very basics of storytelling, and they just do the basics so well. But everything else around it, the dialogue, the writing is atrocious. But it's still fun.
So is this a plug or not?
I don't know. Know. We'll say yes. We'll say yes to Cobra Kai.
Maybe you need to sit and simmer with it for a little while longer before you.
I have been for 4 seasons.
I mean, I have set it as a mission to at some point watch the original movie so I can start watching the series because everyone tells me
Right, because you have not seen Karate Kids.
No, the only Karate Kid movie I have seen in its entirety is the next Karate Kid with Hilary Swank, which I do remember seeing in theaters.
Which is the same
mid-90s.
as someone saying the only Fast and Furious I've seen is Tokyo Drift.
Yeah, but
which I'm saying is you've seen the best one.
Yeah, I was saying, yeah, but your standards.
Y'all could rebrand to Karate Talk.
Oh God.
Yeah, kicking back. Yeah, I recommend it. The Karate Kids are very fun.
Yeah, I'll watch them.
Yeah, and then after all the Harry Potter stuff happening this past weekend, I decided to take a break from the Wizarding world and go back into my other childhood stories, and I started rereading the Percy Jackson books.
Oh, okay.
And they're so fun. They're definitely aged younger than I remember.
Okay. So who is reading the audiobook that you're listening to, Cameron?
Let me tell you. I can pull it up.
Called out.
And not that I have any problem with audiobooks. You know, I obviously love the audio medium, being a podcaster, but I always have to call you out because you say you're reading something. And
I
I'm
am
going
digesting.
to be pedantic about it and say that you're technically not reading it.
Jesse Bernstein is narrating this audiobook. I am digesting the Percy Jackson series again.
There we go. You're enjoying, you're engaging.
Yes.
With it. I've actually never read those, so I don't have much to talk about on that.
I've only read the first. I've only experienced the first 4.
There we go.
And I think there's 7 altogether.
Okay.
6 or 7. So I just need to. I'm gonna try and crank it out to the end this time.
Okay. Yeah. I saw the first movie. It was fine. So.
Yeah, and I think Disney Plus or HBO Max is Disney Plus is making it a series soon.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
And I think they're attempting to cast the right age characters this time.
Oh, well, yeah. They're always too old in the movies, aren't they?
Yeah. Because it's what Dylan O'Brien.
No, that one
actors?
was Logan Lerman.
That's right. I'm
Yeah.
thinking Maze Runner.
Yes, that one's Dylan O'Brien.
Yes. Yeah, I enjoy Dylan O'Brien more.
Yeah, same. Love me some Dylan O'Brien.
Yeah.
I know all of these names.
But what about you, Chris? I'm hoping you plug something that we briefly talked about.
Oh, I guess I can. Okay. Yes, I did watch and finish Arcane.
I'm so proud of you. Thank you.
I had heard from a lot of people, Cameron included, that it's really, really great, even if you're not a League of Legends person. And so I started it, and I had a hard time getting into it the first 3 episodes. But then at the end of the 3rd episode, like, is really kind of the inciting incident of the series. Mm-hmm. And then from that point on, I was pretty much hooked, and I really enjoyed it at the end. And it is gorgeous. The action in it is fantastic. The music is great all the way through. So yes, I will say I ultimately ended up quite enjoying it a lot. It just took a little while. It's a lot of going on in that world. It's a very complex world, lots of world building, lots of characters, and it was very unclear where it was going until it finally like dug in its heels and got going, and then it's pretty great. So
this is such a big victory for me, just to hear you admit anything that I've pitched is good.
I'm gonna undercut
like,
that.
I had nothing to do with the show, but
I'm gonna undercut that slightly and tell you that you were not the first person that pitched it to me.
I don't care. I don't care at all. The fact that you enjoyed something that I pitched just brings me so much joy that I didn't think I could feel after 5 years.
Well, I mean, that's been my life's mission doing this podcast, is to keep joy from you while we do it. But yes, I did that. I finally fucking finished Dune, which I've been reading since the beginning of September. By the end, I really enjoyed it. It just took a long time. So for anyone who's out there who's considering reading it, if you give it time, it's worth it by the end. But it was kind of slow. I finished that. And then last night, I had a double feature. I watched Sister Act 1 and Sister Act 2 Back in the Habit.
Amazing.
They're both on Disney Plus. The second one is like, it's good. The second one's good. The first one, I have to say, is great. I'd never seen it before.
Those were like core childhood movies for me.
Yeah,
for some
they
reason.
are for so many people, and I just never saw them. But it's like I said, they're both on Disney Plus. The first one especially is absolutely worth the watch. Whoopi Goldberg is so funny and so charming. Just the whole movie is just really cute and charming, and I absolutely adored it. So a very strong bat plug on my part for Sister Act. But I think that does it for us this week. We got through everything. Mattie, thank you once again for joining us. Like I said, very long overdue and very much appreciated. If people want to reach you or find your stuff, what's the best place for them to look?
Yeah, I'm glad to be here after so long. But if you want to find me online, I am at Mattie Washburn on Twitter, at executive producer Dick Wolf on Instagram. I've been holding on to that one for so long, hoping he'll eventually buy it from me and I won't ever have to work ever again, but I don't think it's going to happen. Or of course, anywhere you can find Watchtower Database. We are at DCAU Watchtower on most thing. You probably would want to follow that one more than following me personally, just on account of I have ADHD and I'm way too online, and so I'm just clogging your feed all of the time. Well, more so on Twitter than Instagram, but you know.
Hey, I follow you everywhere on all those places. You and Watchtower Database. It's well worth the follow for both. So, and
Well,
I am still relentlessly overjoyed at your long running crusade here to try and get the Dick Wolf handle bought off of you. It's absolutely brilliant.
I feel like I've had this since like 2013, and I was just thinking like he'll get it from me eventually. He'll get it, and I think that I've like found out a little bit more recently that I think he has an Instagram that's just Dick Wolf.
He probably does.
And I'm just like,
Is it Richard
God
Wolf?
damn it! Take it from me, please.
But who's gonna know who he is if it doesn't have executive producer in front of his name?
I get you would not believe how frequently I get tagged by people that I've never ever met who are just like tagging me in Law and Order SVU memes, and I'm just like, that's not me, but thank you.
But thank you. I love people who don't do that due diligence of like double checking this is actually the right person to tag something in.
It's always fun. I even got like one of my fiance's friends recently like bought me an executive producer Dick Wolf hat because of how long I've had the Instagram.
That's perfect. That's so good. And then Cameron, where can people find you?
If you want to find my art, you can find that at Cameron.Dexter. And if you want to find my face, you can find that at CameronDexter_adventures. It's been a minute.
Yes, it has been a minute. And yeah, you can find me at Lordifer on Twitter and Instagram. And you can find the show at Tim Talk Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Gmail.
Yes.
We are approaching the end of our run here. We have 3 more episodes left. Hoping to have at least one more guest on in that time. And
then Titans Talk.
Yep.
And then
Titans Talk.
I have nothing else to add to that. And then
Bruce Timm has a new animated series coming out. You can't just cancel the podcast.
we shall see what happens. Let me put it that way.
Well, I hope to hear more from y'all because you guys have been my friends inside of the computer for so long now, and it's gonna sting if like all of a sudden it's gone. I mean, obviously you guys will still be here, but I like hearing your voices talk about things that I like.
We shall see what ends up happening. We've been talking about it. We'll figure something out. But thank you, Mattie. It's very, very, very sweet of you to say. And like I said, this was.
Yeah, we'll see if this Hollywood big shot has time in his calendar for me.
I have a busy schedule. What can I say? You know,
Cameron, start a podcast with your mom.
I'm a busy boy.
No, my mom also already has a podcast of her own, and it's already doing better than ours.
And you haven't plugged it?
Have I plugged it? No, I've not plugged it.
Go back to bat plugs real quick.
I think you have way back in the day. I think you did.
Probably. My mom and I have this weird like subconscious competition with each other. Whenever one of us starts a new creative endeavor, the other one will like subconsciously also start that creative endeavor. Mm-hmm. And so when we started Tim Talk, like 2 weeks later is when she started her podcast.
Yeah.
And then I started writing a book maybe 2 years ago, and about a month after I started, she started her book, and she got to publish before me.
Well, which one is on the pod tower?
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah. Who's really found that success there? But no, Mattie, this was so much fun to have you on. Yeah, like you've become one of our favorite people, and the gift of this show has been the awesome people that we have met, and you know, you are very much high on that list. And so to have you on the show finally, it's just been super delightful. You know, we've been lucky enough to join you guys for stuff on the Watchtower Database, but we have to kind of collect all you guys on our show at some point.
Now y'all got to get a TED, huh?
I know. I feel bad. I got to try and find a way to get Ted on at some point. But no, thank you for joining us.
How close is he to Titans?
Exactly. God.
I don't know, actually.
Goddamn Titans. To be determined. But thank you, Mattie, and thank you everyone for listening. And yeah, we will be back. Our next episode, we will be covering Grudge Match and Far From Home. Oh, these are good episodes. These are very good episodes. Those are good episodes. Very exciting.
I almost, like, once Great Brain Robbery stopped last night, I looked over at my fiance and I was like, I don't want to make you do more episodes, but this next one's like really fucking good.
It's really good. I've been looking forward to Grudge Match in particular for a really long time, so I'm excited to get to that. But thanks everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Ba 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 ba.
Ba 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 na 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 na.
Ba dun dun da 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 da.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Perfectly rehearsed. No second takes here.